Hey there, and welcome back to Pest Control Legends. I'm your host, Danny Leibrandt, and today I'm joined by Jonas Olson. If you don't already know Jonas, he's the founder and CEO of Pest Badger, the Midwest powerhouse that pivoted from lawn care during the pandemic and rocketed to a $10 million pest control empire with 14 locations in just a few short years. He's also the face behind one of the top 5 pest control YouTube channels, boasting 140K subscribers, and co-creator of the Pest Control Millionaires coaching platform. In this episode, we'll unpack the door knocking origins, viral video strategy, and culture first leadership that fueled Pest Badger's explosive growth, and how you can apply the same blueprint to your own business. Now, without further ado, Jonas, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. So I'd like to jump back to your journey and your origins. You've been doing some crazy stuff in the past few years, and it seems like you've just blown up all of a sudden, but I want to get back to square one. So maybe what would make most sense is your lawn care roots. Tell me about your background in lawn care and how you originally got started.
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me here. But yeah, I started this at a pretty young age. Wanted to start at 18. You and I had a conversation before this, but I wanted to start at 18. Tried to get it off the ground, didn't really have any money, didn't know what I was doing. So kind of flopped. Did the high school thing, went to college for welding, hated every minute of it because I'm blind and I wasn't great at it. And my friends were just doing it, so that's what I did. And then fast forward a few years later, I had a good job, making some decent money at that point, and I saved enough money to go buy myself a real commercial lawnmower. And then I started mowing my grandma's backyard, knocked on doors, got my neighbors, or her neighbors, knocked on another door across the street, got that neighbor. And then I did that for about a year and a half. So I'd go to work Monday through Thursday. And then I'd actually go home and cut grass from Thursday through Sunday. I did that for about 2 years. And then I had a daughter, and I said, hey, I didn't want to work out of town anymore. I didn't like the lifestyle they were living. They were drinking at the bars every night. Most of them were divorced. Didn't want to take that path. And so I decided to go all in on the lawn care thing. So I quit my job at 26, had a baby at 26, and went all in lawn care. I remember got my first customer. That actually was a commercial customer that had 2 houses, residential houses. I got those. And that was like my first real client. And fast forward 12 years later, they're actually still a client of mine, which is really, really cool. So that's kind of how I got into the industry. And I built a pretty successful business then. We were doing like $3 million in revenue. And then COVID hit, shut us down, and pivoted at that point. Wisconsin was about, the border is 45 minutes from me. And pest control was deemed essential. Wisconsin was a little bit more open. It was a lot more open during the pandemic than Michigan was. We were shut down completely. We couldn't do anything. And I taught myself how to knock doors. Still remember to this day. Knocking on her door, and thankfully, her dog was allergic to wasps. And so there was a ground wasp nest that I was able to treat in there. So I knocked the first door, sold it. With that being said, I also about threw up. I had to step away, gave my composure and go back in and knock the door. And I was just kind of just selling whatever. I didn't care if it was lawn care, pest control. It didn't really matter. But yeah, that was my first door knock. And then I sold that one, and it was like, light bulb went off. I'm like, hey, I could do this. And then I think like my best day after that, like the next year or so, was like 15 a day. So I got decently good at it too. So that's kind of how I got in the industry, and kind of why I had to pivot.
Dang, that is crazy. No, I know you're a huge proponent of door knocking. You talk about it a lot, and you say that lawn care companies are not taking advantage of it. Can you talk about why door knocking is so important and why it's a big opportunity?
Yeah. So I think door knocking is like one of the oldest strategies ever for marketing, right? And so if you think back to even the early 60s and 70s, my grandpa used to knock doors too. He had a refrigerating business, a grocery business, but had refrigeration trucks that he would deliver their groceries to. So he didn't want to go out and just deliver one house groceries. He'd knock on the neighbor's doors and fill up his route that way. So it goes back to the early days. So taking that same philosophy and applying it to what we're doing today, it's the same concept. But what happens, it seems like this is how we all start out. Like I told you, when I first started my lawn care business, I started knocking doors, knocking neighbors. I didn't know what I was doing, but it still worked. And so what happens, I feel like most companies, they start out that way and they get a little money in the bank. Then they start going online, and it's way easier. It's obviously way easier just to hit a few buttons and do all that than it is actually go knock doors and get your face kicked in every day. And so people kind of just get away from it, where if they just stick to those, grassroots marketing like door hangers, flyers, postcards, door knocking, old school marketing tactics, they still work to this day. So yeah, it definitely really effective. And like you said, lawn care companies, there's very, very, very few that are doing it. And I've said forever to Blue Ocean.
How do you overcome the fear of door knocking?
I still think that every day there's a little bit of fear. I'm not going to lie, like the hardest door to open is always your own.
Mm-hmm.
Getting yourself out there. But then after like the first few doors, then it just gets easier throughout the day. I don't know if it ever goes away. Maybe it does. Because I've knocked tens of thousands of doors, and it's still like that first door is like, you still have those little jitters every single morning, but eventually goes away and you just kind of settle in. And, like, especially if you have a bigger vision of why you're doing it, how it's super cliche these days, because that term is just overused, in my opinion. So just having a good reason to go out there and do things every single day. And it's like Alex always says, like, it's the law of 100, whether it's postcards, door hangers, emails, text messages. Go out there and just do 100 a day and it'll work.
And how should you go about door knocking when you're going to each house? Maybe you go to the nicer neighborhoods around. Yeah. What are you saying at the door?
There's a million things you can say, but I always just, do a quick icebreaker, which is like, it's kind of like, think of like a headline in marketing. Like you get first 3 seconds to make an impression before you get kicked off the door. It's the same thing. So just coming up with like something that's easy, relatable. So what I always say is like, if you like shoes and you come up with really nice shoes on, like I'm going to talk about your shoes. If you have a really nice boat in the yard, the guys that love fishing that on the doors, like talk about boats, talk about fishing. Like it's something that's just very relatable like that. So that's how I start out. And then I just introduce myself, who I am. My first name, last name, so there's no ambiguity, because like there could be, I know my name's probably not a good one to use because there's not very many Jonases out there. But let's just say your name's Joe. Like there's a million Joes there, but if you say your first name, last name, and the company that you're with, and the role in the company, there's zero ambiguity that you're like not being honest, right? And then from there, I just kind of tell them what you're doing in the area, why you're there. Maybe you're giving them the discount at the door because you're doing the neighborhood at the same time. And then from there, it's just kind of just a soft close, so if they're interested or not, that's cool. And just see what happens, And there's way more to it. Like do a 12-hour course on this alone, but that's the gist of it, honestly. Like it's not that hard. And if you're just first starting out, just go introduce yourself, tell you're coming from the neighbor's house that you just got done servicing. Like I said, they probably don't trust you yet, but they've seen your trucks in the area 7 times already. They trust your neighbor. So just go tell them what you're doing at your neighbor's house, the problem that they're having, how you solved it, and maybe you can give them a special offer at the door.
Awesome. I know something else that you're really big on is offers. Alex Hormozi came out with this book, $100 million offers, and he's really popularized this term and this way about going of business. How do you use offers? What offers are you using for your company?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think even before Alex, I was deep diving into Dan Kennedy's books, like No BS, but like it goes way back, right? Jab, jab, right hook. There's so many good books out there, so many great marketers. And Alex is like the new, obviously the new creator out there. And so there's nothing really new out there, but it's all the same works. And we talked about this at dinner too. Like I'm not a huge fan of discounts. I think it makes your brand not as, you don't get as much value. So if you give a discount, that same customer is always going to want a discount. They're going to think of your brand as a discounted service. So I always like to throw in value stacks, right? And say, I'll give you this thing for free and this thing for free. So maybe that's a mosquito treatment or a flea and tick that you can do at the same exact time that you're going to give them for free for their first initial treatment. That's the way I like to do things. And there's 100 different things you can do there, but that's just the first thing top of mind. Things that you can do for free that are not going to cost you a lot of time, but add a ton of value to their first service.
Awesome. Okay. So you have to make sure there's something kind of irresistible, because that's a word that comes up often.
Offer, yep.
And how does that compare to competitors? Like what do you see as kind of the normal offer in the pest control market?
It's the same thing over and over and over again. It's a $29 free service or a $47 free service or a free service in general. Like there is zero value there. They're not going to say, hey, that's a company that I want to go with. Majority of the time, people are not buying off price. They're buying off value. So if you can create enough value, they're willing to pay more for your service than anything else.
Can you expand upon that more? How exactly do you really create value?
Yeah, sure. So like going back into what I talked about. So you're talking about, you're going to do a pest control service. It's X amount of dollars, right? Then you do a lawn treatment. Then you do a mosquito treatment. You're building all this value, building your value of the company. And you say, but for, let's just say you're competing against another customer or not another customer, but another competitor, and you're charging they're charging, let's go keep this easy, like $150.
Mm-hmm.
But you say, but for all this, it's just $200. Like, oh, wow. For just $200, I can upgrade to you. That sounds awesome.
Mm.
And then going back to your brand and what you look like, how you present yourself, you're like, we go into that, but that's just how I like to do it. Like, I like to build so much value that they can't say no. And they're going to charge a premium service for us to be there.
Yeah. Awesome.
I don't want to compete at the bottom. Like, it's hard to build a company as it is. You cannot build a company with no profit. So you're constantly giving away a free service. An initial for $50 is just hard to scale.
Absolutely. No, I did want to get into brand. So let's talk about that, because you have such a killer brand. I mean, you have a huge YouTube channel, and even like regarding the pest control space, you have Pest Control Millionaire, the big podcast. A lot of people know you in the space, whether that be customers for pest control or other people in the pest control space. So how do you think about branding, and why is it so important?
Yeah, another great question. And, I go back to the very beginning. The first name of my first company, you probably don't know this, was Olson's Lawn Care.
I do know that.
And then it from there went to Olson's Lawnscape, and then from there went to Olson's Lawn and Pest. And every time that I did this, I still didn't know what I was talking about. Maybe I still don't, but I've definitely learned a lot since those days. And so taking my name out of the equation completely was step number one. Step number two is like, I love characters, and I think especially in the space that we're in, the service industry, and I know like in the past 10 years or so, a lot more have been building logos of characters, and I love that. So I built that. Buggy's our Badger, and he's on all of our trucks, and so like all the language that we speak to customers, all the emails that go out, text messages, it's all from Buggy the Badger, nighttime manager, whatever you want to call him. Is what he's got a certain tone, it's a certain language that he speaks. We know that our customer avatar is mainly women, so speaking to the women of the households, things like that. So we dove deep, and then in the colors too. I was reading a book at the time, and it was a delivery company. It's food delivery. It's actually a restaurant that was delivering food, and I can't remember the book off the top of my head, but they had one pink car, and it had like a lobster on the top of the car, and so everyone always said that they kept seeing this car all the time. It was like downtown New York, if I remember correctly. And they said they had one car. And I was like, well, that's crazy. So I was just reading the book at the time. Like, and I was moving to Green Bay for my company. Everything was green. Back at home, my colors were green. So I couldn't go in there with a green truck either. So I knew that 1% of all vehicles were pink. So that's why I chose pink.
Wow. Yeah, no, I love it. It stands out so much. It's so bold, actually, because people think that's like a female color, but actually using pink is, I would argue, the most masculine thing, because you're like, no, I'm so masculine, I actually can rock the pink, and so I can see that point as well. But talk to me more about the mascot thing, because I feel like that's still not clear to a lot of people. So I had Dan Antonelli on my other podcast, probably the biggest guy in home service branding. He did it for Tommy Mello and Gettle and these other big companies, and he made it really clear to me. It really didn't make sense until he explained it to me. But talk more about why exactly a mascot, and why do you need like a fantastical figure versus it could just be you, Olson? Why should it be a mascot?
Like I said, I'm trying to build the brand, and so I want Buggy on everything, whether that's, like I said, on all of our email marketing or text messages and our trucks. Like, it just stands out, makes it more fun, more relatable. Especially like when you were back in, like, I think even this is why it came from his book. It's been a while since I read it, but like going back to when I was younger, like having those figures, like Tony the Tiger, like on the Fruit Loop box. I think it came from his book. It's like all things like that just made it so relatable. I think if I remember correctly too from that book, again, this has been a year or two since I read it, maybe even longer at this point. I think the very first character was like on an oatmeal box or something. I think it's like Quaker oatmeal. It has like that old like Quaker guy. I think that was one of the first ones, like 1940 or something. Don't quote me, but I think that's what it was. So this goes way back in the day. So I just learned through that process. And then my mentor, Jonathan Potoshnik, he has like a dog on his, and I learned from him. So it's like, we did all this branding training. So going through that, I was like, okay, now this makes more sense. So having, again, just that brand as a whole across all marketing channels, using their face on everything, like, it goes super deep. But that was my philosophy around the Buggy Badger.
Yeah, and talk to me more about the value and results that you've received from that. Like,
For sure.
How is it different when you know, pull up into someone's driveway and they see the truck and they see the logo on the shirt and you know, maybe they see the website and such. How is that different, and why does that help?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there, but like, and I know it's people say, well, how can you track if that's actually getting value? But as soon as you add that logo and people actually start calling, you can track the source to saw trucks, and you can see that, you know, last quarter you got $200,000-$300,000 in revenue from just your trucks. You know, your brand's doing pretty well. So it's just tracking those things, and it's like, again, it's not like there's a lot to unpack here. So you don't like at this point, I wouldn't even put a phone number on our brand at this point. I'd have our website on there. I probably wouldn't have a phone number. I'd probably just have our logo and our name. Because again, you're not going to, most people, there's no call to action on the van, right? There's just not. It's brand awareness at its finest. There's no real call to action. Most people aren't going to have a problem that are following you around if you're driving down the road. But let's just say you're parked somewhere and someone has to walk by and they took a picture. The first thing they're going to do is go to ChatGPT or Google and say, you know, Google Turf Badger or Pest Badger, right? And your name's going to come up. You're going to call through Google anyway. Then as it goes into the office, they answer the phone and say, how did you hear about us? Like, oh, well, I saw your truck. I was walking on the street. Cool. And you put a source code to that. So again, I don't know if I answered your question fully, but that's just how I see it.
Yeah, sweet. And then just to kind of wrap up this branding side of things, when do pest control owners need to start thinking about branding and implementing branding? Is that at like 100K a year, or can you do it $1 million?
Another great question. I'd say the earlier, the better. If I could go back and do it all over again, I'd still probably make some changes. But it doesn't get any cheaper, right? As you scale. And so we added a few things. We added the tagline as we went. Our tagline, we get into trademarks too if you want to, but make sure that you're trademarking everything from your brand to your logo to your everything that you have. Just make sure that you have that done. But our tagline is one of them, and our tagline is "Have a Pest-Free Day."
Nice.
So it's in all of our trucks. So even that simple little change can obviously add, you know, tens of thousands of dollars at the scale we're at. So just to answer your question, the earlier, the better, honestly. Because again, it's not going to get any cheaper, right? If you have 1 or 2, 3, 4 trucks, great. Do it now and put a lot of thought into it. Call Dan, honestly. Read Dan's book, give you a lot of good insights. Again, I'm not a super huge expert on this topic, but I've done a lot of research and I've done a lot of this on my own. So I would say it's not going to get any cheaper. So if you're doing $1 million or less, go do it now. Because at $5 million, again, it's not going to get cheaper. You know?
Yeah, awesome. And then you were mentioning how the trademark is so important. Why is it so important?
Oh, because I've actually seen this in person. I have a friend that went through this. So he had a company name in his state. He researched it in his state, and he owned it in his state. But he grew to a pretty big size, and I think if I remember right, they were doing about 10 million at this time. And there was a smaller company that was doing like, don't quote me, it was like 80 to 800,000 that owned the trademark. And that company, and so they had to buy the trademark from this company, and it cost them, I think, $100,000 or maybe more because they didn't own the trademark. So just because you look in your state or your county and the name's available, or in the domains available, doesn't mean that it's not trademark. So go get a trademark lawyer, look it up online, make sure you can buy the trademark, make sure you can trademark your logo, your name, tagline, everything like that. So it's super important because it could cost you a lot of money in the future for sure.
Awesome.
Even your color scheme, you can get done. So
really,
yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Another topic I wanted to cover was pricing. So Jake was talking to me, I think it was just before you came to our hotel room. You were saying Jake was saying like, oh, well, Jonas was telling me to up my prices. He kept telling me, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to listen to Jonas because he knows best. Why and when does it make sense to up your prices? Like, does every company need to up their prices? What is the psychology behind that? Why do you do that?
Yeah, I think that the majority of, if not all, the majority still have room to move. And so that's the first thing that I look at is pricing. Again, most people that are just starting out, they call their competitors, right? And they're like, well, here's the bottom, here's the top, and then I'm going to put myself in the middle. Yeah. Or even worse, like, okay, well, I want to undercut these people, so I'm going to price even lower. The other side of that is you've had people who have been in business for 20, 30 years, have never raised their prices. So they're doing like $80 quarterlies. I literally see this all the time. So the first thing that I always recommend is just raise your prices. And I have people that push back on me all the time. And I was one of those people myself. Like the first time that I did it, I remember sending out the email like what's going to happen? And I think we raised it like 20% that year, which was still a significant amount. And like 2 people canceled. I'm like, oh. It only took me one time to realize, okay, I need to do this every single year. At this point in my career, I just know like bottom 10% of my customers, it's okay if you raise them by 10%, you lost 10%, you're still going to do less work and the same amount of revenue, if not more. And I say this all the time, and I probably heard me say this in the podcast, in the class, on YouTube. Like, even if you raise your prices by 50%, you lost half your customers, you still be doing the same amount of revenue, but less work.
Dang.
So the first thing I always do is raise your prices. I want to be the top. I want to be charged higher than every other company in our area. So we literally call around. We do the same thing. We also know our break even point. We're going to break even on this job, and then we add 20, 30, 40% margin. Say this is where we want to be, because we want to be able to recoup our marketing costs as fast as possible, our customer acquisition costs as fast as possible. If we can get that on service 1, great. If we can do that in the first 30 days, even better. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. So you're never going to be able to scale a company by having zero profit. And so I would say right away, raise your prices. And that's what I got to say on that.
Love it. You were telling me a good story earlier of how you scaled one of your many locations from 300K a year to, I think it was 800K a year. And you did that fairly quick. It might've been in a few months. I might not be getting the details exactly right, but retell that story. What happened?
Yeah. So again, no fault to this person. He bought a business and had a decent clientele, didn't really grow it. And he decided that he wanted to sell it, and it just happened to fall into our lap. And so I made the deal happen. And he was doing like $350,000 revenue, and he had quite a bit of customers. Like he had 700 or 800 customers. I don't know the exact number, but he would just like kind of let them do whatever. Like he was just like, oh, well, I'll come out in May, and then I'll come out in July, and then maybe one time at the end of the year, or maybe it's just a one-time thing. So he said, well, okay, we'll take that same philosophy, but I'm gonna put it in our model. So it goes 800 customers, put it on how often we're gonna come out. And then, of course, we raised prices, like I said. Mm-hmm. And so almost overnight, we went from 330,000 to like 700,000 overnight. The same exact company. It's like, okay, so even if we lost 10% of the customers, right, we're still gonna be much further ahead. And I was okay with that. Because people just don't like change, or especially if you come in and you change everything, like get cards on file and they had no cards. Like there's so much unpacked there too. But it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna put them on our model. If they leave, they leave. If I lost 20%, but still raise the price by 20% and added 5 more services, they're gonna be like, this is a lot of change. But even if I lost half the customers, it would stick. Well, only as of today, don't quote me again, but like maybe 20, 30 customers only canceled. And they all went with the service level. We all raised their prices, and that company went from 340,000 to like 650,000 overnight. And then we added an additional like 150 to 200 on upsell for pest control.
Jeez. Okay, so just to make sure that I'm hearing you right, you only upped the prices and added more services?
Yeah, that simple.
No.
Yeah, like I didn't even add more clients. And then from there, I just upsold them to the next service. So they already were getting mosquito, because this company was all mosquito. And so we're like, okay, we're going to go service them this many times instead of just random ones. Like they're just like, yeah, come spray me, or, come do my application, whenever. And that's just not how we operate. Like you put you on a schedule, come out every 21 to 30 days. Because we want you to also have the best results too. We want you to enjoy your backyard, enjoy your cookouts, things like that. So you're not getting eaten by bugs the entire time you're out there, So that's what we did. And so that's kind of what happened. We went from 340,000 to 650,000 overnight, upsold them. And I think today that branch is like shooting for 8 already. And it's only in the very beginning of June. It's already shooting for $850,000 revenue this year.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
And tell me more about that service stack. Does that make sense for most companies of providing, you said like an additional 5 services? Should most companies do that, or when does that make sense?
I would say, honestly, no. Not at first. I'd say we get really, really good at one thing, get to scale, and then add on services. Like the fastest way to grow is just be good at one really good thing. And I tell the same thing to my kids. Like they love sports, and I love that they love sports, but they want to do them all.
Yeah.
They want to do wrestling, they want to do cheerleading, they want to do track, right? And it's like, I get it, but if you want to be really good at one thing, just focus on that one thing and you'll go much, much further. So it's the same thing in business. Like get super focused on one thing, whether it's pest control or mosquito control or whatever your thing may be. Focus on that. And once you get to a good market penetration, like, okay, now I can add services. Now add mosquito, now add the next thing. Which the very beginning, like I kind of get it because it's so hard for people to say no. Because they're just looking for money, and I get that. But as you grow through that phase, one of the hardest lessons I had to learn is just saying no. So once you get to the point where you can say no and just focus on that core service.
Awesome. And if you don't mind sharing, what does that pricing model look like? Are you hitting them every month? Is it a few $100s? Tell me more about the pricing structure.
As far as like the mosquito control or pest control?
Yeah. If, like, for instance, that story that you were telling of like you completely revamped their services, you have everyone on this big service model and you up the prices. What was the difference there?
Yeah. So exactly. I think, again, I'd hate to throw out numbers, but I think they were doing like some applications like $50, $60, and I wouldn't touch it less than $80. So that's just me. This is a small lot, but they were doing a lot of back here too. So they do like $50, $60, but then they do like the neighbor's house, and the neighbor's house is like every time they got a neighbor, they get a discount, which is great in theory. But you fast forward 2 years forward, half those customers left. And so now you're going to this one stop for the $50. So don't ever discount because they're just neighbors. Like it doesn't make any sense because I said in 2 years, you're not going to have half those customers anyway. And you'd be going there for $50. So we just raised the price right away from $50. Again, don't quote me these numbers, but just fictitious. Let's just say we raised it to $80. So now we're doing a minimum of $80. Now we're just gaining $30 right there, which is pretty much profit right there. And then from there, we're just adding on pest control. So however you guys bill, whether you guys bill monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly, however you guys bill, just bill them that way. So there's a bunch of different models. You can build subscription, right? Where you can build that into, let's just say you're billing $50 a month for pest control and, $50 a month for mosquito. Now you're billing $100 a month. So now your LTV went from, let's just go with 12 months. Your contract value went from, say, $400 to $800 or $500 to $1,000 for that same customer.
Yeah. Awesome. And something else I wanted to cover was churn. So how do you reduce churn? How do you keep customers as long as possible?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially in pest control and lawn care. But churn is actually fixed on onboarding. And so it's just being very, very clear and setting very clear expectations up front of what the offer is going to look like, what the service is going to look like, and how long it's going to take you to actually prevent the problem. So if you say, oh yeah, we're coming and fix this problem and you're never going to have an issue again, like you just be lying to the customer, you're setting yourself up. But you said, hey, this is going to take, a few applications. You're probably still going to see some bugs out there because this is just the real world we live in. If we're doing mosquito control, we probably can reduce it to 80%, but you're still going to have 20% mosquitoes out there. So it's not going to be mosquito free. As long as you set the expectations up front, be realistic with the customers, then also following up with them too. There's so many things you can do here. From a welcome package to that shows up the door 2 days later, the technicians drop off, the follow-up phone call, a couple days after the service to check in on the customer, emails that go out, text messages that go out. There's a lot to unpack in this little thing, but the very, very best way is just on, the onboarding of the customer.
Yeah. Go deeper on that. Like what do you and your company do specifically that retains customers longer?
Yeah. So again, start out at the very beginning, like we're constantly, I'm preaching to my sales guys, like it's so important just to be open and honest from day one. Because again, if you say you're never going to see a bug and the next day you see a bug, like it just doesn't look good. Yeah. Most times if people have never had a treatment ever, and then you go do an application in their house, they're going to see more bugs. It's just how it is. So all of a sudden they see a bunch of activity. What the heck? What did you guys spray? And you're like, bugs everywhere. So that's step number one, is just being very, very clear and set the expectations. I love welcome packets. So this is again, way back in the day, we used to send out welcome packets to every single customer in an envelope. So just think of what you could do today, because there's so much automation out there. So we used to send out a welcome package that just had like stickers in there, logos in there. It had our insurance in there. It had some, like back in the day, like people loved coupons. So we had like coupons stacked on there, had our, like I said, our insurance, maybe I said that, had our insurance in there, had a bunch of cool little things, and then had like lumpy mail, which you could put like a spider in there, a scorpion, or like we use a fly swatter.
Yeah.
That it looks like there's something in the mail that they have to open. And it would just go through like our core values, just things like that. What could you make that today to be modern? And then how could you give it to them when they least expect it to? And they're like, wait, a pest control company just did that for me? Like, that's the craziest thing ever.
And how long should you expect to keep them? Is it 3-5 years plus?
I think that, again, depends on the medium that they come in. If it's traditional marketing, you know, like Facebook, or if it's through Google, I would say, 5 to 7 years is probably the average. If it's through door to door, it could be a little less than that because they got sold at the door. But even still, like we like to see 3 to 5 years there. But yeah, that'll be about some averages.
Yeah, awesome. Something else you do, which I mentioned, you run the Pest Control Millionaire podcast.
Yeah.
You've had, I believe, over 100 episodes. You're a pretty big name in the space. It seems like everyone knows you mainly because of the podcast. Talk about some of the benefits of the podcast, and should other pest control owners or home service owners start one?
Yeah. Again, the very like origins of the podcast is honestly because a bunch of our friends and I, we were all in this group together. And then the group kind of got shut down, and like someone's got to start a podcast just so we can all like hang out and like catch up with each other. And so I was just kind of waiting for people doing it, and no one was doing it. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go do it. So I just was like, I'm just gonna start a podcast. And I actually had just did a podcast last week with one of my really good friends, Brandon Peterman, and he was the very first episode.
Really?
So it was kind of fun to see how we've evolved. 140 episodes in, and yeah. Again, I was doing it for fun. Again, I get to learn what's working out in the marketplace. I get to meet a lot of people, and then the influence thing just kind of came as it went. Like I didn't plan on it, but I kind of expected it. I didn't know that the podcast was going to take off as fast as it did. I had no idea about that. Yeah, it's been fun. Like I actually really enjoy it. I get to talk to people. I get to learn, and then everyone else just gets to learn as I'm talking. So
yeah,
for everyone.
No, I know. Trust me, I love it. This is now my second podcast. I run my kind of more general local marketing one, and now this is my pest control one. So I absolutely love it. Like you said, I learned from all these people. It's networking, it's content. It's really fantastic. And I would generally recommend it to people, but it might depend on, if you're, kind of still hustling, then maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe you should wait for the next stage. But talk to me about some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from running your show, of maybe these high level people that you're talking to, or maybe any just overall insights that you've gained across your 140 episodes.
Yeah, I would say the very first thing is that I didn't think I had enough credibility to run a podcast at the beginning. And even though felt like I was doing big things, the majority of people, less than, 7 or 8% get above 1 million. So that was a big thing. And then to get to 5 and then 10, like I still just didn't feel like I had enough credibility to run a podcast. So I think that's just, I want to say that because like anyone can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
No, honestly, I can too. Yeah.
So that's kind of where it started. Then the whole TikTok and YouTube kind of thing came in. Again, more things I didn't expect, but I think everyone should do it.
Yeah.
Like some of my best friends I've met through the podcast. Like you're sitting here, met you through the podcast, Jake through the podcast. So many people that I met through the podcast, and I guess the authority that I've built through the podcast and in our industry has been pretty impactful too. I get to talk with a lot of people. I got asked to speak on some stages last year, this year, speaking at some more. Been a lot of cool opportunities, met some pretty cool people. Been on some cool vacations. It's been fun for that too. Yeah.
No, it is a cheat code for networking. Again, this is how me and you met. It's how me and Jake met. It's how I've met a lot of these different people in the space. So it's really incredible. And then talk to me about the Pest Control Millionaires program. So I feel like not too many people know about this. A lot of people know about the podcast itself, but talk to me about this program that you have with Jake.
Yeah. So again, this is kind of started because I ran into the same issues over and over again. I've been through it multiple times. A lot of my friends have been through the same issue multiple times, and it was so frustrating to be in. And I was working with agencies. And again, I'm not talking about all agencies, because I think majority of them mean well and they do a really good job. But then there's some that are horrific. And I've heard so many bad stories. So I'm like, okay, this is such a pain point for so many people. How can we fix it? And that's how it started. I'm like, I want to figure this thing out. One, because I want to do it for myself. And two, I want to save everyone else from going through the same shit that I did. And I was so frustrated with dealing with agencies. Again, they find an ad that's working on, hold on a second. Babe, you can't do this right now. Hey, take this back with you. I'll be up there in a little bit. I love you. You want to write down that time? It's 36, I think. Okay. So they find this ad, and they found one that works in a market, and then they're gonna use that. They take that same ad, and they deploy it across every other company that's out there. They just white label it. They put a different name on it, and then, especially like in my area this is where it gets hard, because I have such small markets that people can only see my same ad so many times. And then by the end of the month or whatever, when they're going back to look at it, I'm paying so much per lead because they're not watching close enough. And so again, there's definitely a place for these guys. But I just wanted to make it better for everyone else. So the whole point of the course was like, I want to teach everyone else how to do their own marketing so that they don't have to hire an agency. One, sometimes they're really expensive. Two, they're not all good. And again, not all, but I found a couple that are really, really, really good. I'll say that. And there's some that are just absolutely terrible. So the whole reason behind the course was like, I want to help out everyone that I possibly can to not go through the pain that I went through. So if I can just teach you how to do your own marketing, it's way easier. Yeah. And then you have so much more control over it, And
talk to me about some of the top strategies that you teach in that program, not even necessarily to promote the program, but like, what are some strategies people need to make sure they're doing with their pest control companies?
Yeah. Like the ones that are so easy that people just don't do is just Facebook groups. There's lots of groups out there, and it's so easy to post in those groups, mom groups, things like that. Facebook ads is another big one that in the home space, people just aren't really hitting on. Like it's old, but people just don't do it. And then they start doing it, they boost a post, and they expect the magic to happen, and boosting posts are terrible. It's just a way to get you to spend more money without watching. So we really teach you how to dive deep into all your Facebook ads. Let me go through, we have you on there now. So we're going through a lot of Google content. And then there's so much to unpack there. Yeah. Like there's like 12-hour course just on SEO, right? Yeah. So there's 12-hour course just on SEO. There's Facebook ads, there's Google ads. We literally teach you how to build your own marketing machine. There's social media, like there's TikTok, there's YouTube. There's so many different strategies you guys can deploy that will not cost you any money other than the course and then some ad spend.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's actually a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I've recently even launched a course in that program regarding SEO and everything Google. If you want to check out that course, it'll be in the description. But regardless, something else I wanted to ask you, which is kind of general, so you can take this however you'd like, is overall, like you've talked to a lot of pest control owners, you have the group, and there's like the weekly calls, people are asking you questions. What is like the main thing people are struggling with, and what do they not really get?
Man, again, I did a podcast last week of just this, like the top 10 questions that I be getting. And it's simple. It's like, should I brand my truck? Should I wrap them? It's simple as that. Like, what should I be priced now? Should I be doing subscription versus quarterly versus bi-monthly? It's what offer should I be putting out there? Like, when should I hire my first employee? Which employee should that be? Like those are like probably like the top main ones. Which backpack sprayer should I use? Which 1 gallon sprayer should I use? Should I be marketing? These are the main questions that I get, and they're all very, very, very simple to solve for sure.
Huh. Okay. So It seems like they're kind of asking about nuance, about things that don't really matter. Like, how do you go about answering those questions? Is it just a simple yes or no? Is everything kind of nuanced?
Yeah. So there's, again, like if I talk about the employee thing, right? Like I did a YouTube video just on this. Like, don't go hire a technician, hire a CSR. So you can take back your time. So you have accurate billing, you have accurate scheduling. They're very detailed. We're typically not, as operators. So bringing someone that's detailed, you're going to buy back 20 to 30 more hours of your time of that week and go generate more revenue.
Mm.
So that's hire number one. And then your second hire after you start building out the second route would be a technician. Things like branding, like we already talked about that. Every single person that's listening should wrap their truck yes. Mm. Like 100% yes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Wrap your truck.
Okay, so those are some simple yes or no.
As far as the equipment, I get frustrated on this one too. I don't care. Find a supplier that'll treat you good. If something breaks and you can bring it back to them and they'll give you one to use for the time being, go with that person. I don't care what the brand name is. I could care less. Just find a reputable supplier that'll treat you good to help you scale.
Yeah, it seems like people are just thinking about things too much.
Yeah, they get caught up.
They're getting caught in the weeds. Yeah, exactly. Whereas it's very simple, but regardless, you still make the videos, the YouTube videos, to help out with those concepts.
Because I've been through, like, again, I have the class, and I talk to many operators, and there's some high level questions too, but these are the questions that get asked over and over again. So like every time I see a question, like, oh, this question keeps coming up, I'm gonna go put out some YouTube videos for this, because if these operators think that way, I think the majority of the operators think that way.
Definitely. And maybe the last thing I'll ask you is, we have mainly been tailoring this episode to pest control owners doing under $1 million a year, because that's where the vast majority of people are at. But what advice and what would you recommend to pest control owners that are at around $1 million a year and would like to get to 10 million plus like you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would definitely look at your market. I fought my own market for way too long. Like my market here was just not scalable. And although I thought I was a good operator, which I was, but I was fighting the wrong market, the wrong demographic the entire time. And I was hitting my head on the wall because I couldn't scale anymore. So step number one is most people get caught up in the market that they're in. So definitely check your markets, your market penetration is, see if your market's even scalable and your services are scalable.
Awesome. And last question I have for you, what is your just overall general message to pest control owners? What do you want to tell them? What is your call to action? What do they need to know?
Think bigger. It's all mindset. It's what between your ears, what you tell yourself at night, if you can or can't. Again, I'm no different than any other operator. In fact, there's probably 90% of them are probably smarter than me. But what I tell myself every night is like, I can do this. I'm already telling you this story.
Yeah.
Like I used to shake an 8-ball. Like for the longest time I can remember. Every time I run into an 8-ball, I'd shake it. Like, I hit 100,000. It'd say yes. And then I shake it again later on. Like, I hit 1 million. Yes. I hit 5. I was constantly telling myself that. And then also surround yourself with winners. Be very, very diligent of who you give your time away to. Again, something I had to learn the hard way. You have negative people in your life. Business is hard as it is. And if they want you to spend more time with them in the business, like the failure rate of business is high. So every time that they try to pull you away from it and want to spend more time, you're spending less time doing this thing. And it's really, really hard. Like I don't want to go into detail, but it's really hard to get those people out of your life. But it's very, very impactful. So be very, very diligent of who you give your time away to and what you do in your spare time. Like I don't have any hobbies. I'd love to say that I do. This is my hobby. Yeah. And I love it. So it makes it way easier to go to work every day. But it was a grind, like I was servicing, I was doing sales. I did it all. I've answered phones. I've done emailing. I've done billing. I've done every single role in the company because I had to. But think bigger and then surround yourself with some really good people and people who are doing really big things. I know it's super cliche too, but if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I intentionally always try to put myself in rooms that I don't belong in. And though they're hard to get into, it's so much fun when you get there because you learn so much. And those people know so many other great-minded people that it's like a very small, it's a big world, but in our industry, it's really small. You can get into those rooms. It's pretty incredible what they talk about.
Awesome. Well, I think that was a great show. Jonas, thank you so much for coming on. First off, let's cover, where can people find Pest Control Millionaires, potentially join that program?
Yeah. You can email me at info@pestcontrolmillionaires.com. You can find me on YouTube. Just look up Jonas Olson. I rebranded actually. So all the Pest Control Millionaire stuff is gone. It's all under my name, Jonas Olson. So find me there. You can put a comment. You can direct message me on Facebook. It's a good place. LinkedIn. I mean, pretty much any social media. It's 2025. You find my name, I always respond. You can ask anyone that's around me. Like I always respond pretty quickly too. So just hit me up and ask me questions, and love to help you any way that I can, honestly.
Awesome. And yeah, that actually leads into my next final question here which is, where can people overall connect with you? Like, where are you most active? Where should they follow you?
Yeah, definitely most active on YouTube for sure. Follow me there. I even have a person that in my own market, I posted something on Facebook and she commented on it. She's like, too bad that you're so close to proximity that I couldn't get help from you. I'm like, I could care less if you live right next door. I'm still going to help you.
Yeah. What?
And wasn't saying that to be like cool on social media. Like I truly meant it. And that one comment had so many likes.
Wow.
But I met them at an event. They're great people. They're just starting out a business. That's why I have this YouTube channel. Like I want to give away as much free content as I possibly can to help out every operator out there.
Absolutely. And that's what we're doing with the show here.
Right.
So awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jonas.
Sure,
it's been a pleasure and I learned a ton myself. So yeah, thank you. And I hope to have you on again sometime.
Sounds good, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jonas.
See ya.